Good evening. I'm John Vajda, a volunteer with AARP New Jersey. Thank you for joining us for our final Melodies of the Garden State Facebook Live. If you are just joining us for the first time, this was a four-part series where once per week we discussed the link between music and brain health and explored the unique history of music right here in the Garden State. Tonight is our final segment of Melodies of the Garden State, but you can find the other segments in the video section of the AARP New Jersey Facebook page. According to a new report from the AARP-funded Global Council on Brain Health, research suggests music can enhance a sense of well-being, reduce stress, facilitate interpersonal connections, modulate the cardiovascular system, improve balance, and boost the immune system. The report recommends incorporating music into your life. It can improve well-being, including quality of life, especially when shared with families and loved ones for enjoyment and entertainment. If you are unhappy, try listening to or making music to improve your mood or relieve feelings of depression. Music not only improves mood, but studies suggest can also help with those diagnosed with dementia. The capacities to enjoy and engage in music through listening, singing, dancing, or playing an instrument are extremely durable even when brain health declines. Music therapy taps into these capacities to treat a wide array of physical and mental symptoms. Advocates of music-based therapy say the approach can pay off for dementia patients as well as their caregivers by enhancing communication, promoting cooperation, facilitating social interaction, and improving spirits. For more information and to read the full report, visit aarp.org/brainhealth. Again, that's aarp.org/brainhealth. Now for a little more on our Melodies of the Garden State Facebook Live series. Each week, we have been joined by Professor Dewar MacLeod. Professor MacLeod earned his BA degree from Eugene Lang College at the New School and his PhD from the City University of New York Graduate Center. Currently, he teaches at William Patterson University with a focus on the history of culture, rock and roll, childhood, suburbia, and U.S. foreign policy. He is the author of a book, Making the Scene in the Garden State, Popular Music in New Jersey, from Edison to Springsteen and beyond. Professor MacLeod has been sharing engaging and educational information about certain genre of music each week. Then we have a New Jersey-based musician play live and original music for us. We want to make this interactive for our viewers. If you have a question or comment for our guests, please type them into the comment section below. We want to hear from you. And of course, we can't have a virtual music performance without a drink. Each week, we have been sharing a New Jersey-inspired cocktail recipe. Alcoholic or non-alcoholic, your choice and completely optional. For our last virtual cocktail hour, we are having the Jersey Fresh. This cocktail is flavored with spice, sweetness, and fruit flavors that echo some of Jersey's best produce. Take 2 ounces of dark rum, 2 ounces of any flavor syrup, and club soda. For a true Jersey flavor, you may want to use blueberry syrup. Fill the glass with ice, add the rum and the syrup, top with club soda, and stir. For extra fun, garnish with Jersey Fresh berries. Now, while we all have our drinks in hand, let's get to Professor MacLeod, who will be focusing tonight's segment on New Jersey's contribution to the indie music scene. Professor MacLeod, thank you very much for being with us tonight. It's a pleasure to have you on our final segment of Melodies of the Garden State.
Thanks, John. Great to be here. And every week I like listening to your little tidbit about brain health. And I really tap into this idea of facilitating social interaction And that's my real interest in history and in popular music. So this week I'm going to talk about the music scene in Hoboken in the 1980s, centered around Maxwell's, a great club right there in the middle of Hoboken. And this is from my book, Making the Scene in the Garden State, that just came out this year. And I'm going to probably rush through this because there's so much good stuff. So let me just, I'm just going to give you a little sense of things going on in Hoboken, which was a pretty dreary, beaten down city in the 70s. It certainly had some of its rusty old charm, but it was impoverished and it was cheap to live in. So young people started to flock there just in little bunches because for the cheap rents. And it's most famous for the Maxwell House coffee plant. And then in the early 80s, a club called Maxwell's Tavern, which had been a tavern that would serve shift workers during their breaks from their shift, was taken over by a family, and they started booking bands, and first locally, and they created this local music scene in Hoboken that was connected to what one writer calls the Cultural Underground Railroad, that there's this national, even international network of music scenes that emerge in the wake of punk rock from New York, London, Los Angeles, but then also Cleveland, Detroit, Toronto, Vancouver, and even Hoboken and many other places, college towns. So you get zines, record stores, people hanging out. And in Hoboken, there becomes this little scene that is identified with the Hoboken sound. And a lot of these bands started then, and somewhat still with us today. The Feelies take long breaks but come back. Yo La Tengo's been around. The Bongos are back, and many more. And so the Bongos is one of the first and really one of the most enjoyable, and has probably the closest hit at stardom at the time. The record labels sort of discover these music scenes from time to time and sort of drop in looking for the next big thing. And Hoboken had its moment, but never fully took off. And here's a great sound check shot from the stage at Maxwell's, where dozens of local bands over the decades emerged, but also traveling bands from all over the world. The Cucumbers are still around in different incarnations and had a brief MTV hit called the My Boyfriend. They live actually now out in Maplewood, South Orange, and are part of that music scene. On the left there, that's Karen Cool, who now has the Karen Cool Band, and she's out of Jersey City. And so a lot of these people are still around. She runs a little program called Little Rock and Rollers, teaching guitar and music to little kids. And I'll just say, Karen Cool Band, she's an extraordinary talent. And I just discovered her not that long ago, a few years back, and just really amazing performer and guitarist. So check her out whenever you can. So this Hoboken scene really still lasts. Like, the scene itself is gone, but a lot of the people are still participating in the music scene. Jim Mastro of the Bongos has a guitar store in Hoboken still. And Maxwell's is a centerpiece, but you still have zines like the Jersey Beat and New York Rocker record labels, and so on. Jersey Beat still around, still edited by Jim Testa. Still has a website. I don't know if they actually put out a physical zine anymore, but these kinds of zines were really essential to sort of spreading the music, because the music, it wasn't on the radio, it might be on college radio. So it spread a lot by word of mouth. And these things were run off maybe on mimeograph machines or Xerox machines, maybe at Kinko's, but this is even from the time before Kinko's, maybe at the office photocopier after hours, and then spread around and sold for cheap and mailed all over the country. And these scenes were interacting all over the country with each other. And you can see up there, if you look at the one on the top left from 92, it's a little bit later, but you see Nirvana's in there. But in 1982, it has its brief moment, Bands Across the Water, the New York Rocker, which had a really nice connection to the Hoboken scene, featured them in their last issue, and Bands Across the Water exploring a model pop community. And, Hoboken had this great and weird relationship with New York City. And one of the reasons I wrote this book is because, my sense of New Jersey music is that it's more than just a suburb of of New York City, and it's more than just a place to pass through between the other big cities, but that New Jersey has its own indigenous scenes. And a lot of the people who settled in Hoboken were people who couldn't afford the rents in New York, maybe didn't want the mean streets of New York in the 70s and early 80s. And also, came from New Jersey and had a liking of New Jersey, a lot of them. So it had its own scene. They definitely cross-pollinated with New York, and they traveled to New York and played New York and vice versa. But it had its own little enclave. And then it had some really wonderful relationships with other touring bands, REM most famously, and another band, Pylon from Athens, Georgia, came up and said, "You guys got to see this new band. You got to book them out of Athens. They're called REM." When they had just formed, they're getting this connection. Human Switchboard out of Cleveland was one. There's a whole sort of Ohio diaspora here in Hoboken as well. Famous scenes by legendary bands before they were super big, but big enough on the indie scene. The Replacements played some raucous, crazy, wild, exciting shows there. Nirvana, before they hit it big, played one legendary show here. And I love these photographs capturing what it's like to see Nirvana in a club before they started playing arenas and stadiums. And here you could even buy, I think it's been sold already, but you could buy Kurt's smashed guitar from the Hoboken gig at one point. I'm not sure how much it went for there. And you can even find the recordings of this. These things, a lot of these things still exist. I closed my chapter with a sort of elegiac look at what happened to Hoboken. I talked about it as some place, as I said, that emerged from the industrial New York and industrial cities. You may remember it from On the Waterfront, when it was a thriving dockfront city. And then by the 70s, like so many cities, it had faced decay, and a lot of apartment buildings were being burnt out by landlords in order to try to get people out of them. And so this is one of my favorite books. Melissa Holbrook Pearson, a beautiful writer, has a nice book about The Place You Love Is Gone, about progress hits home. It's the other side of progress in several places she lived. And she has a beautiful, beautiful chapter about Hoboken. And we see the gentrification and redevelopment of Hoboken. And so often musical and artistic scenes are kind of at the cross sections. They emerge in places that are too beaten down for other people to want to live there, on the edges of society where most people are afraid to roam, and only the young and adventurous and those looking for something new and exciting would dare to go there. And it's cheap enough where you could pay the rent and still be an artist and make a living. And that inevitably seems to bring other people there, and other people who say, well, if those people are willing to go there, there must be money to be made there. And it's a mixed blessing, because a lot of the city was dilapidated, but what happens is that it gets renovated, gentrified, and people get pushed out, the people who were there before, and ultimately people, nobody can afford to live there. So you have the people who were living there earlier can no longer afford to live there. You get the closing of the Maxwell's plant, you get the demolition of the Maxwell House plant, and you get finally the closing of Maxwell's in July 2013. It was resurrected briefly by different ownership, really just the name was the same in the space. But the other thing, these guys still around. Todd Abramson's still around playing music on the radio. Steve Fallon has a shop down in Rehoboth Beach in Delaware. And they're still active participants. And the most interesting thing I actually think I found out about all of this is I could not find anybody to say anything bad about this club. Every band that played there said we were treated with respect. They usually partied all night with Steve. But they were fed decently, and they were paid decently, which is really, really hard to find in the music business, and every type of music business. And I end with, The Place You Love Is Gone, long, long gone. And this sort of SantaCon as Hoboken is just sort of my image of sort of what Hoboken has become, just another plaything for those with lots of money. Right. So I hate to end on that sad note, because the music still survives and the musicians still survive, and other music scenes continue to thrive here in New Jersey. So I'd like to end there on a more positive note, that music is still being made, still being shared, and still being enjoyed in New Jersey. Thank you, John. That's all I got.
Thank you, Professor MacLeod. We've learned a lot about Jersey music history from you. I want to remind our viewers, if you have a question or comment, please type it into the comment section below, and we will do our best to answer it live tonight. Now we are going to turn to a musical guest this evening, Suzzette Ortiz. Suzzette is a graduate from the Conservatory of Puerto Rico with a degree in piano performance and a minor in composition. She worked in Camden as a music teacher for 27 years until her retirement. Her choirs received countless awards both nationally and internationally. She is currently the artistic director for AMLA Music School and is also involved in a music healing and transition program where she will receive her certification to provide comfort music to patients by playing the Celtic harp. Now sit back and enjoy your cocktail or favorite drink, and let's listen to Suzzette music.
Thank you. This song is entitled A Mis Amigos, to my friends, and it was written many years ago when I first came to the United States and started meeting beautiful people from all over. And I had a friend who was getting married and asked me to write a song for her. So this was her wedding march. So I'm going to move to a more slower piece. It's inspired by a bioluminescent bay in the island of Vieques, which is part of Puerto Rico. And for this song, it's basically is kind of like a prayer for us to preserve the beauty of the bay. The bay shines at night when you move the water, and it's very magical. So it's hoping that we can preserve, to not pollute the water, so we can preserve the bay. And for you, the bioluminescent bay. Bioluminescent bay. Rays from 1,000 suns have touched you, warmed you, loved you. Exquisite little bay. You're a beautiful mystery. Through you the waters of life flow. And so when night falls, you glow. And so the night falls, you glow. And not a very small piece. This is my last little piece. It's an improvisation of a song that I'm writing with a friend, saying that even though that we cannot be together during the pandemic, we are in each other's hearts. And I hope that the music that I'm giving to you serve as comfort. It's come from my heart, and I just love to share what I do and what I love the most, which is music. This song is in the rhythm of cha-cha, just for you to enjoy. Aunque estés lejos de mi lado, vives en mi corazón. Aunque estés lejos de mi lado, vives en mi corazón. Aunque estés lejos de mi lado, sigues en mi corazón. Aunque estés lejos de mi lado, sigues en mi corazón. Aunque estés lejos de mi lado, sigues en mi corazón. Aunque estés lejos de mi lado, sigues en mi corazón. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suzzette, for that wonderful performance. And a special thank you to all our viewers for joining Melodies of the Garden State on Facebook Live. Tonight was our final segment, but you can find the other segments in the video section of the AARP New Jersey Facebook page. For more information on the power of music on the brain, please visit aarp.org/brainhealth. Again, that's aarp.org/brainhealth. There you can also download and read the full report from the AARP-founded Global Council on Brain Health. And if you like to receive emails from AARP about the events and offerings we have going on, please sign up at aarp.org, email New Jersey/email New Jersey, and say yes, which is the number 2 option. That's aarp.org/email New Jersey. Say yes to email, which is the number 2 option. Thank you again, and good night.